Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Packaging Experience podcast. And always with me, Nicolas and Tom. How are you, fellas?
Very good, Jeff. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
I'm
Great
doing too
day.
bad. Yeah, it's nice and hot today, so I don't know why I have a vest on, but I was trying to look pretty for the podcast, so here we are.
Yeah. You always look pretty, Jeff. So no worries there. But
Make me blush.
Nico and I are definitely in the heat down here in Florida in late July. It's banging every day. It feels like temperatures either 107 or 110. So happy to be in air conditioning. Best invention of all time.
I bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially it's probably humid for you guys. Humid a little bit down there for you guys this time of the year as well, huh?
Yeah, it's gross. And
pretty much half of the year.
Half the year. Yeah. So today we actually have a fan topic. This one is something that has been kind of reached out to us quite a bit. And so we thought we would go over it today. This topic today is the impact of packaging on shelf life. And so what I'm going to do here to kind of start things off is I'm going to read off a little bit of a study. It came from January of 2020, so bear with me. And then we're going to kind of go from there. So let me go ahead and read this really quick. It's started off, it's over 76 billion pounds per year, reaches landfills and combustion facilities than any other material in everyday trash, constituting 22% of discarded municipal solid waste, and plays a role in making landfills the third largest source of human-related methane emissions in the U.S. And so my question for you guys today is, where do we go from there?
Yeah, you're saying fresh food, 78, how many pounds did you say?
76 billion pounds.
76 billion pounds of fresh food ends up in the trash in the United States?
Yeah.
Alone?
Yeah.
Yikes. That's not great.
There's also data that at least 40% of what is harvested will never get to the stores. And that's something that people are not aware. Like what Jeff is talking is only what is going to grocery stores, but most of what is being harvested around the world, at least 40% won't get to the grocery store. And sometimes it's because of the supply chain, the lack of proper packaging. So we're wasting a lot of food, and it's important to know what's the importance on packaging on this matter. We are conscious that we are plastic distributors, manufacturers, and we're part of the problem, but also part of the solution. So it's important to educate people that plastic is necessary for certain things. You just need to choose the right plastic or material to not harm the planet so bad. But it is necessary. We're no longer living in tribes where we exchange and grow only what we're going to eat. We need to go to the supermarket. We have different kind of jobs. So this is the new way of living and it has been for a very long time. So we produce a lot, normally more than we are going to consume, and we exchange it for money. But there's a lot of ways that goes in between. And that's what we're going to try to educate today. What's the role of packaging to extend the shelf life of food in general?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that's a crazy figure. 40% makes it to the store, and of that 40%, 78 billion pounds are getting thrown out. I mean, it's just a massive waste. And you know what I look at that's really interesting is I never buy produce at Costco. And I'm assuming like people that own restaurants and stuff like that are maybe the only people that buy produce at Costco. But I couldn't imagine like buying like a whole cardboard tray of tomatoes. Like, what would I mean,
right.
If I'm doing burgers, I want one tomato, right? And I'll slice it into 6 slices, and that's enough for the family of 4. If 2 of us have 2 burgers, we're good. But like to buy a whole flat of tomatoes is a little bit crazy. So you gotta like even bananas, like 6 bananas.
Yeah.
Like how many are you getting out of that? Is it 4 and then the other 2 go in your freezer and you make banana bread out of it? Or do the other 2 just go into your trash or your composting? So fresh is tough.
In my case is pancake banana for my kids. When they
nice. When they start to brown?
I mix it with oat and eggs and do pancakes. But to your point, I do buy a produce at Costco, but I have to buy some specifics. Like I always buy the strawberries, blueberries, like things that I know the four of us in my home will eat really fast. And even though sometimes we end up losing that product because we don't have the time to consume it at time, or you have to pick like no more than 3 items per week, otherwise you won't have the time to eat it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a bag, like it's a CPP bag with a zipper right now in my fridge that's got cherries, and they're about to age out. I sat there last night and ate like 15 of them, just because I'm like, hey, that's how I'm going to get my sugar as opposed to like sweet stuff or like ice cream or produced or high fructose corn syrup or processed sugars. Like I'll just get my sugar from fruit, which is a much better way to do it. But still, I'm going to throw away half of that bag, and that stinks.
Yeah, same thing with grapes. I mean, I can go through. I'll buy the bag of grapes with a zipper. I'll start eating it. Immediate stomach ache. The rest of it, I won't eat. So it's like, oh man, this is terrible. So I'll freeze them. That's another like kind of get it something around the corner. There is to freeze them, kind of hold their, preserve them. It's not inherently blanching them. You're just freezing them, but yeah, I mean that's a good way for me to do. And then I'll just dip it in some stuff. But back to Nicholas's point, real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were saying how the food got lost to going to the retailer, and that was a huge percentage. It actually says here in my paperwork that they lose year over year more than 161 billion. That's how much the retailers are losing just from the food on the way to. That's insane.
You need to think about the supply chain, and for the moment that it's being harvested, not every grower has the capacity of provide an established cold chain. So if you don't, everything starts when it starts. I mean, if you harvest in the right time of the day, like when it's not so much sun, you put it under shade, you move it fast in a truck that is covered, take it to a storage facility that where the product is going to be cooled down. That's the ideal post-harvest practices. But a lot of countries, a lot of farmers don't have that thing. So if you don't protect the product from the beginning, it will decay very fast, and that's the reason why a lot of fresh produce goes to waste.
Yeah, that's also a good point too, because whenever going through, Castroville, back where the main office is, and all the farmers out there and stuff like that, if you see them running, not only are they hustlers, but that's kind of the point of Nicholas's, side of things, is they're trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible so that we have fresh food. So that's a huge respect on a lot of parts there, is watching them run out in 80, 90, 100-degree weather. I mean, that's insane to me. So I got to give a lot of, props in that dedication, or that, that side of things. But yeah, that's why they're running, is because they're trying to get that food from point A to point B without it spoiling.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, they're sprinting down those lanes. Yeah. Yeah, they're there at like 6 a.m. Like when I was staying down in Monterey and making that drive, it was right during strawberry harvest season. So every morning, man, you just see them and as soon as they fill their tray, they're sprinting to the truck.
Sprinting. Yeah, it's crazy.
Those guys are crazy dedicated. Now, the nice thing about Monterey, compared to let's say Paso Robles or something like that, is at least it's always 64 in the morning or 58. That's nice. Florida is a huge strawberry producer, but I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's 107 feels like temperature. So I'm assuming that they have to take different measures during harvest in Florida than they would somewhere that's being cooled by the Pacific, So,
yeah.
So, all right. So we got fresh, and they're doing everything when they're actually harvesting it to get it to the harvest and ready to be packaged as quickly as possible. And I think that kind of pivots us to now it's going into a package. What's the role of packaging to preserve freshness? And there's a lot of different things you could do. And we all kind of have our specialty in this. Nico knows a lot more about modified atmosphere than I do. I know a ton about barriers and different ways to prevent food from going back once it's there into the bag. So maybe we start a little bit with fresh and modified atmosphere. Nico, if you could kind of explain what modified atmosphere is, what types of fruits and vegetables require that, which don't, all those different things that Jeff and I really are clueless about, and hopefully educate our listeners along with Jeff and I.
Yeah.
For sure. In general packaging, let's say that traditional packaging helps the produce. Let's say you buy the grapes that you were mentioning, Jeff. Normally those bags come with big pen holes to protect the product for shriveling and freezing, and it allows the circulation of air. But that is not sufficient to extend the shelf life. It helps a little bit, like traditional packaging helps a little bit, but there's something called modified atmosphere, which is a passive approach to extend the shelf life. So imagine that you have like let's call it a smart bag. That's not the proper way to call it, but I like to use metaphors so people remember. Traditional packaging and modified atmosphere packaging will be the smart bag. The smart bag is a bag that once you close it, it will create a new environment, a new ecosystem inside the bag. And how that happens, it has two different things. One is modified humidity, and the second one is modified atmosphere. So modified humidity is achieved through the package. So if the structure of the film allows breathability, it will allow us to circulate the air better, to expel the condensation, but also to keep the enough amount of moisture inside. You cannot expel completely, and this happened to you guys when you put fruit or vegetables in your fridge, and you start to see the shriveling. So you need to evacuate the excess of moisture, but you need to keep something to keep it healthy. There's different structures to do that. The best one for that is polyamide nylon. It's a very breathable structure, but also BOPP works really good for these kind of situations. To explain modified humidity, imagine going to the gym and doing exercise with a cotton shirt, right? So after a while, you're going to be completely sweating. Your shirt is going to be soaked in sweat, and you will lose a lot of water, and it will take you a lot to recover your regular temperature. Versus when you use a dry fit shirt, right? When you use a dry fit shirt, your body preserves better the temperature. It takes out the moisture or the sweat or the heat, but it regulates better. So that's the part of the modified humidity inside the packaging. Like the right packaging, like the right shirt on a gym, will help you to establish a better temperature, because high temperature stress the product, and that will increase the decay very fast. The second part, which is modified atmosphere, this is achieved through a certain of micro perforation, laser perforations. Most of the products has patents on that, and every day companies are doing new patents to continue doing different solutions. Not every solution works for the same, but with these small holes, what they do is that increase the CO2 level only by closing the bag and with the holes. The CO2 level will increase and the oxygen level will decrease. What does mean for produce? There's a hormone called ethylene that is what causes the maturity or the rip, what start to rip the product. So if you reduce the ethylene levels, it will last longer. So imagine that when you use a modified atmosphere bag, you will put the product into meditation and yoga. So that's kind of the metaphor. So the less you stress, the longer you will live in a better situation. So if you're not stressed, your respiration rate will be lower, and that will help you to last longer, because heat will be the major point of the initiation of the decay. That's the best way that I can explain modified atmosphere, and imagine what that can allows you, like to export fresh produce from Peru, Argentina to China to Europe to the US. Normally that's depends on the destination, but it could be between 2 to 4 weeks on a container on a boat. And the beauty about that is that you can get the same freshness of the product on the port of arrival, similar to the day that when you harvest it. So that's a way that you can avoid decay and food waste, and able to help your companies to export fresh produce to destinations that were impossible in the past.
And along with the packaging and the modified atmosphere and the humidity control, it does have to be cold chain, right, Nico? It has to be in a refrigerated environment. Obviously, I mean, if you imagine trying to ship something from China in a container that gets 100 degrees on the water, that would show up probably not so great.
Yes, and as I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, the supply chain is very important, and especially to keep the cold chain protected. The modified atmosphere bag if you don't, the ideal scenario is that you put it the fresh produce once it's cooled down. Sometimes, depending on the product, you can put it not completely cold, but it has to be not hot. And sometimes ambient temperature is good enough. But when you put, as soon as you close the package, it's going to start generating heat. So if it's already heat and you put it, if it's already hot and you put a bag that has modified atmosphere, you're going to do the opposite thing. You're going to start like microwaving the, that's the same. It's not that's true, but you're going to start kind of cooking the product because it's going to generate even more hot. So instead of having the benefits of the extended shelf life, you're going to see that soaky fresh produce with all the growth stuff. So you need to have it cold before you pack it to guarantee that the product will last a very good time period.
That's awesome. And I think like before Nico came on and I started learning about this, I was laboring under the delusion, just showing how ignorant I can be about certain things of packaging, that modified atmosphere was like nitrogen flushes, like where you're changing the chemical makeup of the atmosphere. And you are, right? You're basically prohibiting oxygen from going in and increasing the carbon dioxide, which helps. But I thought it was like an intentional flush of something else where you're pulling out normal air and flushing it with nitrogen. But so I learned a ton about, thank you to Nicolas, a ton about modified atmosphere and set the record straight on what that is, which is super cool. And the reason I don't know much is I just never been in the fresh world. You know, we've been in the frozen world and we've been in stuff that requires hermetic seals for like shelf stable stuff, but like refrigerated packaging is a bit of a new thing for me. So bear with me and my learning curve, I guess.
No, that's good
Same
because
here.
I'm learning a lot of things now that I'm not working directly with Fresh Produce. We are now working with Fresh Produce at Freedom, but we are combining a lot of team effort and talent to do different solutions for our customers. And what you were saying about modified atmosphere, if it's a positive approach, is let's say it's like an organic approach. There's the option of introducing nitrogen into entire containers to control the ethylene produce. There's in the industry, there's also like sachets that do similar work, but it's not the same. The beauty of this is that you can use modified atmosphere to export in bulk or in the finished package. If you ever have bought asparagus at Costco, those asparagus are packed in modified atmosphere. So next time you bought it and you don't consume it all, don't break the bag completely. That's a special smart bag. Take the asparagus, close it, and maybe do it with a zip tie or with some clips. Close it again, and it will restart the modified atmosphere process. Every time you close the bag, it will reignite. If you ever buy bananas that came on a bag without bend holes, those are bananas that are with modified atmosphere bags. So if you leave it in the bag and don't put it in your counter to look beautiful, you will notice that they will last longer. And also, bananas produce a lot of ethylene. So if they're inside their bag, your bananas won't start ripening the produce next to it. Normally, I do it on purpose with avocados. Every time I bought avocados, I put it next to my bananas in 2 or 3 days, ready to eat, and then I put into the fridge my avocados, and they will last like another week, all ready to eat all the time.
Yeah,
but that's playing with the ethylene and with the hormone.
Yeah.
And also at home, we were saying that it's all those times that we buy a lot of fresh produce that we are going to lose at home. You can buy on Amazon modified atmosphere bags, like generic modified atmosphere bags. It's like kind of Lord of the Rings, one bag that sort of to suit it all, but not completely true. But for the purpose of your house, will be good enough. You can put your berries, you can put your grapes, you can put anything but citrus, and it will help you.
Are they making those bags in the fire of Mount Doom, Nicolas?
Yeah, I think Gollum was trying to get them. That's my precious. Nah. But kidding aside, like modified atmosphere has that benefit, but it is customized. Each product has a different respiration rate. So only for the bags at home, we'll do that thing. But you need to pack asparagus in a different bag that you will use for blueberries, that you will use for strawberries. It's completely different. Maybe you can do family categories. that kind of behave similar. Sometimes green beans and Brussels sprouts behave similar to asparagus. So maybe if you're a grower, you can try to have the same microperforation for a couple of products. If you have the capacity and the budget to have separate for each of your products, it will last longer and will be better. But if not, there's some families that you can put together and it will work.
What an awesome little bit of information there for, like, especially just everybody's a consumer of groceries. So Nico just hit us with some stuff to try to reduce that 78 billion pounds of food going into the waste. If the modified atmosphere bags that you get from Amazon, or you're reusing something, and then all of a sudden now you're wasting, every household is wasting 10 pounds less of fresh food in a year, that adds up, right? So really good stuff there. And I don't even do that, right? I need to get my act together on modified atmosphere produce. So
yeah, and
I got my
those
marching
bags that you can get on Amazon are polyamide based, so
Okay.
they're nylon, so they're not recyclable, but you can reuse them as long as you don't perforate or rip the bag by mistake. You can clean it if it's dirty and use it again. Let it dry and use it again, and you'll have a couple of reuses before the bag start to get damaged. So it's not recyclable, that bag, but you're kind of compensating with the food waste, because if we always think about the damage that plastic is doing to the world, we forget that most of the gas emissions that we mentioned at the beginning come from food waste. So we have emphasized in this podcast that sustainability is a verb, and it needs a lot of actions items from different approaches.
Yeah. And Jeff, just for you, like he's saying, nylon, polyamide is the chemistry name of nylon. So, and just for the users, like, what is polyamide? Because only us packaging nerds use that term. Everybody else is like nylon, and so they're familiar with it. And to your point, nylon is super strong, so you could probably get a ton of uses out of that, Nico, compared to like a PE bag that's super soft and probably will start getting pinholes and stuff like that. Nylon, I mean, we use that for anything that can puncture. We use it for meat. I mean, it's a really durable type of plastic. So that's pretty cool. So that's kind of it on the modified atmosphere side, unless we're missing something else. And then I can kind of take over and go into desiccants and moisture barriers and stuff like that, unless you wanted to hit us with some more knowledge, Nico.
No, that's the only thing for you guys to remember how it behaves. I remember it's a smart bag that will help you to extend the shelf life by reducing the respiration, putting your fresh products to yoga, meditation, and have it relaxed. If your life is well balanced, you will live longer without the need of steroids, Botox, like everything that you need to look better.
All right, no steroids, no Botox for our fresh food. Awesome.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, so in a different world, slightly from fresh food that's in a cold chain and refrigerated, and then you don't really need to do much on the frozen side because the temperature is doing your heavy lifting as far as preservation. But shelf stable stuff that goes in your pantry in a bag, that's going to require usually some different things and barrier in order to keep your food fresh, right? So there's kind of three different barriers that we really focus on. There's your moisture barrier. How quickly can moisture move through the package, right? And then there's oxygen barrier, which is the same thing, like how much oxygen moves in and out of the package throughout a day. And then there's a UV barrier, how much light goes through it. So UV barrier is really important with certain things that respond poorly to UV. I think the most common that you might see in your bathroom would be hydrogen peroxide. So that's H2O2. For every hydrogen, there's an oxygen. That's why it's called hydrogen peroxide. And then how that works to clean up your wounds is you pour it onto your wound, and once it's exposed to air into your wound, it separates into water, H2O, and then a singlet oxygen. That singlet oxygen is super interesting, and I'm going to nerd out a little bit, but a single molecule of oxygen by itself is super poisonous. 3 oxygens together is ozone and is also poisonous, but 2 oxygens together, dioxide, is what we breathe and what we need. So 1 bad, 3 bad, 2, If you don't have it, you're going to die. So that's how hydrogen peroxide works. But what will happen is exposure to UV light will create that separation of water and oxygen in that package. And that's why you see hydrogen peroxide is always in like a dark brown, opaque bottle, because the UV is breaking that down. Another thing in the food world, not so much medical, is potato chips. You're not going to find, you can see tortilla chips and stuff like that. They might have a window and stuff like that, but every potato chip that you buy, Doritos, Lay's, my favorite are Cape Cod, sea salt and vinegar. Those are the jam. Barbecue. I'm just naming my favorite potato chips now.
The ones are good.
But all of that, if they were in a clear bag, what would happen is your potato chips would lose their crispness and start to feel, they would be gross. And I know we've all done this at one point in your life. You like reach for a bag of potato chips and you think they're good, and you put the first one in your mouth and you're like, those are stale and soft and gross. And you just kind of do that, like spit it back out into the trash. You're like, that's gross. And then you throw away the bag.
How you throw them? You throw them?
Spit it back out.
Tom, really quick. So you're kind of talking about the potato chips. That has to do with the high fat content, right? That's the reason why the oxidation process is so important for that. Okay, I just wanted to make, I remember something like that back in my nutrition class, but it was just, I was just curious about that. So continue. Sorry,
Yeah, absolutely. So basically everything fights for equilibrium. If you're packaging up something that has a ton of moisture in it and you're in a dry environment, the moisture is going to fight to get out of that food out into the air. Conversely, like let's say you're packaging beef jerky, which is super dry and no moisture in it, and you're in a high moisture environment, the moisture in the air is going to fight to get into that beef jerky. And beef jerky is a really good example because if it gets moist, and then what'll happen is it'll start to get moldy, and then you got to throw it out, and it's bad. So like let's say you have a big bag of beef jerky and you decided to invest $40 into a bag of beef jerky because it's so expensive. It'll have a zipper on it, right? So it's got really good moisture and oxygen barrier. And I'll talk about how you get to that barrier as well. But it'll also have something in there called a desiccant, which is like that little sachet of silica that's in there. Because what happens is as soon as you do your initial tear and you open it up, the moisture just dives in, right? It was a dry environment, but now you've opened it up. Moisture's diving in there. And that desiccant is designed, like once you reseal the bag, whatever moisture is trapped in there is going to be absorbed by that silica, so that you get a really long time and a better shelf life after opening the bag and interacting with it. But again, Jeff, I think you can relate to me because you make awesome homemade like elk jerky. Jerky doesn't stand a chance in our house. I buy a bag and I'm eating it within the first 10 or 20 minutes. It's not cherries, Nico. Jerky doesn't go bad in our house. It's just like, 5 ounces, that's gone in like 10 seconds.
Gone.
You know? So what we do is like some films have just inherently, like the way that their structure is set up, they have more moisture barrier or oxygen barrier, right? So, but a lot of times it's still not sufficient in order to keep the food fresh in a package. So we're going to add barrier to it. And there's a bunch of different ways that we can do that. Number one, we might metallize, and metallizing is probably the most common thing. You have to metallize a film that is structurally stable. You couldn't metallize something that's soft and gooey like polyethylene, because the stretch and the tear, you would start creating pinholes in that metallization. And when I say metallization, we're talking about aluminum. So you might notice on the inside of your chip bags that it always looks silver. Or on the inside of Pepperidge Farm or Goldfish, even though it's paper on the outside, it's silver on the inside. That metallization, that aluminum, creates a layer that really, I shouldn't say it doesn't allow, but it really slows down how much oxygen and moisture are moving in and out of that bag. And it also provides a UV layer as well. So it's doing all three lifting. No UV can get through it, and it really slows down oxygen and moisture moving in and out of your bag. And it creates a much longer shelf life than if you were just to put it into like a standard polyethylene bag. So that's super cool. And we'll use metallization. And then if it requires a ton of barrier, as opposed to metallizing polyester or metallizing polypropylene, which are dimensionally stable and you can metallize, what we'll do is actually put a foil layer in there. as opposed to metallizing plastic, it'll be like PET on top, and then an actual like aluminum foil layer, and then your sealant layer underneath that makes the bag stick together. And that's for like MREs for the military, for example, where it's like, I want a 30-year shelf life on this completely freeze dried beef stroganoff or something. You know what I mean? So it's just got a huge shelf life, but you need a ton of barrier to make sure basically no oxygen or moisture is moving out of it. It's really got to be something that's got to last a long time to justify that. Or we can coat materials with barrier coatings. Like there's water-based barrier coatings that are oxygen coatings, or grease barriers, or moisture barriers and stuff like that. Almost every single piece of cardboard that you're getting in the world probably has some sort of barrier coating on there that's water-based, either grease barrier, like especially in bakery, right? If you're doing pies, pizza, for example, like if it didn't have a grease barrier in it, that cardboard would get wet and your pizza would eventually just fall right through the bottom. So it kind of keeps everything up on the top, but it also helps with the preservation of food, which is really useful as far as not throwing stuff out. So that's kind of your coating things. They could do some really clever stuff with different coatings. Aluminum oxide is basically aluminum, but there's an oxygen molecule in there, and it turns aluminum clear. So it has a ton of barrier, but you get a ton of clarity on your packaging so that the consumer can see what's actually in the bag. There's marketing studies all over the place that say if the consumer has a lot more faith in what they're buying, if they can actually look and see the contents of the bag. So aluminum oxide is super cool. You see it on Kind bars. Kind bars have nuts in it, which will go rancid if it didn't have a ton of moisture and oxygen barrier. And you can see like the actual almonds in there. It looks like it's just kind of glued together and pressed. But Kind bars have a ton of barrier because of the aluminum oxide on there, but it's got great crystal clear surface to it. So that's kind of one way to do it. And then the other thing that we also do is we might blow ethyl vinyl alcohol into our sealant layer. PE will co-extrude it. So we're blowing a bunch of polyethylene and then we're mixing in EVOH or ethyl vinyl alcohol. And that adds barrier, a ton of moisture, and well, actually mostly oxygen barrier. That's a pretty cost-effective way to do it. It's not as clear. Like if you've ever seen a bag that has a window, but it's a little bit hazy, that's probably EVOH. You don't get the clarity of aluminum oxide, but it's way more cost-effective to add that barrier to it. So that's kind of all the different things that we're looking at. Is like, okay, what's our shelf life now? What do we want it to be? How much is getting wasted? And all these different brands are doing all these studies like, okay, we're shipping out, how much is going to waste? We want to avoid that. And that's kind of how we're doing, at least on the shelf stable side of things. So I think, with fresh, Nico, you talked about modified atmosphere for shelf stable stuff that's just in your pantry. We're adding a ton of moisture, oxygen barrier to that, and maybe UV barrier if it requires it because of the fat content.
And let's talk about the general benefit of putting food in a package, like avoid contamination, direct contamination. The bread, you need to put it there. Like, let's go back to COVID. We were all afraid of someone touching our food. So everything that the package kind of gives up natural protection to the food. We just need to be very aware of what kind of packaging is necessary to put. Sometimes you don't need the package to something that you're going to sell. Normally, let's say when you're buying naked fruit at a grocery store or a cucumber, you don't need to put those fresh produce in those transparent bags that they sell, because you're going to take it to your home, take it out of the bag, and then clean it, because you're not going to eat it right away because that product came out naked in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like they're like on things that support no packaging whatsoever. I just saw like avocados, for example. They don't require packaging. And I just saw a new technology where they're actually, as opposed to putting your little, like maybe it's a compostable sticker on there with the barcode so you can scan it. They're actually laser etching into the skin of the avocado, like the UPC code. So there's zero packaging whatsoever on avocados. It's just etched into the skin of the avocado.
So now they're getting tattoos. Fresh produce is getting tattoos.
Yeah.
I'm a professional avocado tattoo artist on the side, and it's a great gig. But
I was
yeah, I
believing
mean,
you for
that's
like a
super
split
cool.
second.
Yeah, don't listen.
Yeah.
But oranges, lemons, like something that has a super just inherent barrier, like a thick skin around it, doesn't require packaging. So it's kind of nice from an
Or
elimination
even though
standpoint.
if you put modified atmosphere to avocado to organic avocados can work, but to conventional avocados, citrus in general, it will create the opposite because that natural barrier of the skin that the product has wouldn't allow that water vapor transmission rate properly inside the bag. So not every package is necessary. So be aware of choosing the right packaging. Sometimes we only use packaging for advertising. Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't need it.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
go grocery shopping, the frozen fruits and vegetables, if it's not in packaging, I just put it in my reusable bag. I don't throw it in that plastic clear bag. I don't do none of that stuff. If I don't have to take home extra plastic, I try, that's the one thing I try not to do. Try to reduce that completely. So I just throw it in my reusable bag, and I have my own little bag for that specifically for those fruits and vegetables. Put them together, take them home, put them where you need to be at that time. So
Yeah. I just can't remember to bring them to the store. As soon as I like walk out of the
yeah.
car, I'm like, and that's 7 times in a row I forgot to bring my reusable bag.
First world problems, loser.
Oh,
I,
it's just
I, I
ADD
have
problems.
I have those
Yeah.
reusable bags in my car, but my wife never remembers to use it. So every time I have more reusable bags in the car.
Just gets higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, I know that story. Yeah, I think I have more reusable bags at home. I have like a whole section of my garage that has like probably 70 reusable. Oh, so bad.
Yeah.
You know what else is interesting is over engineering, like doing market studies, because cannabis, for example, which is a market that Freedom Packaging is in, is like the cannabis guys, they love glass because it has just a ton of barrier and it's super clear, and they're very proud of what they're growing. It's like, look at the crystal structure of this, I don't know, whatever strand of cannabis that they're growing. And I want it to stay fresh forever. So they love glass. But if they're moving the flexible packaging, for a ton of different reasons, they want it to have a ton of barriers because they're growing it and they want it to stay fresh and at the perfect moisture. They don't want it to be dried out. They don't want it to be soggy. And so they require a ton of barrier. But now they're starting to do market studies, like especially on smaller quantities of flour. Like let's say it's an eighth or even a quarter, which is like 3.5 grams or 7 grams. They're seeing that the end user is going through that in 2 or 3 days. So do you really need a ton of moisture and oxygen barrier if the end user is going through that product in 2 or 3 days, right? They're thinking, well, I want it to last 6 months, but if you're buying such a small amount, it was never going to last that long anyway.
It's not meant to be to last that long.
Right. Right. So if the consumer, like maybe they need reusable bags at dispensaries. Just fill it up. Like those candy stores where you buy by the pound, they're just
Yeah.
sitting there like turning the
Just
thing.
have someone
Like,
holding the bag open for
yeah.
you. You're just all,
Yep. And you just weigh it at the end.
yep.
I don't know.
Great plan.
Yeah. I'm right on top of that. I'll get that
Yeah.
launched here soon.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
funny.
man. So, I mean, ultimately, food waste is, you guys just blew my mind with those figures that you laid out. That's insane.
And so,
That's
yeah, I was gonna say
gotta
that's
be
why it's
better.
important to lean on the experts. Really, I mean, you're trying to maximize the shelf life, right? So I think that's why it's very important. From what Tom and Nicholas are saying today, it's very important to go to somebody that understands how to keep your food on the shelf for longer, or just in a better way, and this just maximize the seal and the quality, really. And I think that's all your guys' points today were great. And again, biggest takeaway for me from what you guys are saying is to lean on the experts. Go to somebody that actually really understands how they can help you, so that we're not wasting more money than we have to.
Yeah, well, biggest takeaway for me is I'm not throwing away that cherry bag that I'm about to throw away the contents on and use it for other stuff. Also, like it's kind of rad if you were in a situation, again, like our office is in Watsonville. I stayed in Monterey the entire month of June. So I'm driving through the mecca of produce, and there's a multitude. Jeff, how many produce stands are in between like Marina and Watsonville? There's got to be
20 to 100.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's awesome if you know what you're cooking that night and you could just go to the produce stand and just hand to mouth it but nobody wants to go to the grocery store every day. But if it happens to be on your way home, like it is, and like these are legitimately right on the side of the road, you just pull off, grab what you need for the day, then you're not wasting food. But I think it's a good target for us to understand or to set for the consumer. We're always talking about be responsible with your packaging. Nico, you make sure it gets to the right place. Once you get it, that's our responsibility as a consumer on the packaging side, but also reducing food waste. I mean, if we could just become way more economical about how much we're wasting, then the whole, like, you got to think big on that. Like if our demand on food was reduced by 60% because 40% of it's not lost in transit, or 60% is not lost in transit, it would be a lot less gas and fertilizer and all this stuff to get fresh produce grown and get to the end user. If you're requiring less because you're throwing away less, then it just has a huge impact on the planet. Just like we were talking about, like, yeah, you look at your own house, it's not a huge deal, but you take that house or each person and you multiply it by 330 million or 400 million, however many live in the United States, that's a huge impact on demand.
And I think we also need to change the mentality of the all-inclusive mentality, and this applies for everything. Look how in the US, especially, you go to a restaurant, and normally the plates are huge, and we order with our eye, but not with our stomach. You know, like we order when we're hungry, and it's part of the advertising and the way they sell things. So, restaurant likes to show the big stuff, but normally you see that those plates are taken with sometimes half of the portion as leftovers. People don't take the food out to home sometimes, or they just throw it away. But also when you buy fresh produce at, let's say, Costco, choose 2 or 3 items. If you choose more than 3, probably you're going to waste a lot because you won't have the time to eat it, or unless you're only eating fruits during the entire week, you're going to waste them. So we need to change that all-inclusive mentality that I just want to put it on my plate and I want to buy more than I need. That's normally goes to waste. So we need to change the mindset and start to. It's an exercise. Start with smaller portions on your plate. If you want more, serve more, but don't start with the huge plate. That's something that I tell my kids every time we go to all inclusive. Hey, this is all inclusive, all included, but you don't need to put all in your plate. Start now, and if you're more hungry, we can go again and make the line. But at the beginning, they were putting like, I don't know. I need like a
food tower,
like a food chart to help them to put everything on the table.
Yeah, well, my rule, like at a buffet, if we're at an all-inclusive, is like you can eat whatever you want, but you take whatever you want, but you have to eat what you take.
Eat what you put on your plate. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can take whatever you want, but you're not going back up there until that plate is completely empty. So we're not wasting food in that regard. And then here's another thing that I've been doing, Nico, is my son, like, he doesn't look at prices on menus. He's 13, but for somehow he always orders the most expensive thing on the menu. And then I would get my
empty, the empty word. He loves it, right?
Yeah, empty. Yeah, what's that mean, Dad? It means you're not getting it.
Most problematic item on the menu.
Yeah. Yeah. Muchos pesos. So I tell him, like, and that what would happen is I would get my meal. He would get a super expensive meal, like twice as much as mine. And then I'd eat my meal. And then he'd only eat like a half of his meal. So now I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get I'm the garbage disposal of the family. I'm not going to order anything, or I might just order a small app. And then I'm just sitting there biding time like a scavenger crab. Like, are you going to finish that? And then I eat it, and then it saves me money. And he's not wasting money, making me mad. So like now I'm like, yeah, go ahead and get like that amazing seafood gumbo that's super expensive, because I know I'm going to get half of it in the end. So now I just don't order. Same thing at home. I mean, my niece and my sister live with us temporarily, and her nickname for me was Uncle Garbage Disposal. I wouldn't even make dinner. I would just sit there and they're like, you want this? You want this? You want this? And I'm just collecting it. It's not healthy if I eat and then eat all their stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait and then eat their stuff. So anyway, I eat everything. That's not good.
Yeah. 6 meals is better than 4.
Oh, man. So Nico and I were in Canada, speaking of food, and we had the best lobster in Northeast Canada I've ever. I mean, it was crazy and super cost effective.
But it was a huge plate. I normally eat a lot, but I couldn't manage with the plate because it was a 2 pound lobster, and it says that it comes with clam chowder, and what was the other thing that came in the
PEI
plate?
mussels
And mussels. So
and a
I
side.
imagine I and a side. So I imagine traditional clam chowders on a side is like a small tiny cup. No, this was like a huge bowl. The 2 pounds lobster, the mussels, and I ordered fries on the side because they were included, which was a basket. I couldn't end up everything. I start like strategically. I start with the lobster, then the clam chowder because I was already full. The mussels and fries. I only have a few because I wasn't able to eat more. Normally, you don't need to serve that much. And I know the plate looks beautiful, and you even take pictures and send it to my wife. But that's the point again. Like you can do the same, but with less. And it needs to involve everyone, restaurants, consumers. Like we need to be aware. Ignorance is a bliss, but now that you know that this is causing a lot of problems, and also knowing that a lot of people are not getting fit in other countries, so you have to be more um, conscious about it. Like do it for the planet, do it for those who can eat properly, and do it for your health.
Yeah, I mean, I got the same thing that Nico did, and I got the side up since I was in Canada. I'm like, yeah, we're doing lobster and PEI mussels, and then I went with poutine, which is French fries and gravy and cheese curds, which is again not a healthy choice. But I only had like one or two of those fries. Now here's a crazy part of that whole thing: that entire meal was $37 Canadian. That's like $30 American for a 2-pound lobster, a huge bowl of mussels, and a huge bowl of, it wasn't just clam chowder, it was like seafood chowder. And it was heavy on the seafood. There was barely any potatoes or filler in that. It was the craziest meal ever. But the next time I go back there, Nico, I'm just not going to be like, no side. There's no need to bring French fries into this equation because I'll never get to them.
You guys were in Canada above Maine, right?
Yeah,
is that the side you were on, the east side?
No,
yeah, we flew into Halifax, and then we were up around Amherst, and where we got that meal was actually in a town called Shediac, which is beautiful. It's got an awesome wharf there. It is really a beautiful part of the country, especially for Nico and I to get out of Florida and then be in like 75 degrees as opposed to 107 was nice.
Yeah, I'm sure the lobster was good because I know that passage that goes from North Carolina, there's just a current that goes all the way up to Canada, and that's where the lobster will take. And I think the lobster there. Yeah. So okay, there you go. Thank you. And the lobster are huge. They're like king lobster, and they're massive. They're rich. It's nice. So, anyways, I can only imagine how good your guys' lobster was.
Yeah, up there it's amazing. Down here in Florida, we have they're basically just giant crawfish. We call them bugs, but there's no claws. You don't get that big claw meat. They just have all the tiny legs instead. But,
my only complaint is that they didn't give us a bib. I was making a mess trying to break out the thing. I was like, they didn't give us the proper utensils. We were kind of struggling. I was like, the lobster fight back.
Yeah,
my shirt looked like a Jackson Pollock painting of drawn butter at the end of it. It was just spots everywhere.
That's just from someone just putting their paintbrush.
Yeah, it's like benediction at Catholic Mass, like hitting you with the holy water. I'm like, what is going on? Mass would be way cooler if they sprayed you with drawn butter instead of holy water. It's delicious.
Yeah, that could be like
nice. All right.
Yep.
I think we've gone sideways on this one.
Yeah.
And that brings us to about 50 minutes into the podcast. So any parting shots, Nico, on your side of the role of packaging and preserving shelf life?
No, I think we point to everything that we wanted to say. If we missed something, please send us an email or the comments. We love to emphasize more on things that we already spoke about, and we can also do different conversations.
Yep. Yeah. Very open.
Yeah, and I just think that as a layperson, if you don't understand packaging, I don't think they understand how much engineering and chemistry really goes into packaging, right? It's like, oh, it's just a plastic bag. It's like, no, each individual bag is designed specifically for those contents.
I do have one final takeaway that I forgot to mention. Most of the growers or distributors are using package that they don't know why they're using it. Normally it's because they have been using it for a very long time. And they just buy it, and that's on the business owners. It's important to continue teaching your employees of what are they selling, because if they know that, they will communicate that at home. And it was crazy, all those clients that I used to visit with that buy modified atmosphere packaging from us, the only thing that they knew is that our packaging was more expensive than others, but they didn't know the reasons. And every time I explained the thing about the yoga, the meditation, and the dry fit shirt, they were like, "Oh, this makes more sense." And so when you educate people, awareness starts to happen. So there's a big role that a lot of food packagers and distributors don't know, and employees change. So something that they decided 10 years ago, they still doing it, but it's important to let your team to know why you're doing it. That's part of the sustainability policy of your company. And maybe you have it on your website, but your employees doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's good to let them know, because that starts to create awareness that goes to the next stage, to the next action verb, to sustainability efforts.
That's an awesome point, Nico, because every time we get a new project, right, we usually get an incumbent package, meaning how they've always done it. And we'll quote it like, okay, this is just matching your current spec. But then we always start with a blank sheet, like, why are you doing this? And most of the time, to your point, the answer is because we've always done it that way. But if there's a way that we can save them money or increase the sustainable play of the package or increase their shelf life, we always kind of start with a blank sheet of paper and say, okay, what are your goals from a shelf life standpoint, sustainability standpoint? Just because you've always done it this way, are there other options that could save you money or be more sustainable or increase your shelf life? Those types of things. I mean, we always just don't like to take it for granted that we're just matching an apples to apples, because maybe oranges is a better fit for this particular product that you're doing.
Yeah, great point.
Yep. So I think that's it. Want to wrap it up?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
go for it, Jeff.
You want to wrap it? Go ahead, Tom.
No,
you had it built up.
No, you know what I'm gonna say. You wrap it up. I'll do the party shot.
All right. Well, we just want to say on our last episode of the podcast, we really appreciate all of the feedback, all of the support. It was great seeing how much interaction we had on that. And we're just going to let you know we appreciate you all. And thank you so much for listening to us trio talk to ourselves, because we have a good time. I hope you guys have a good time.
Yeah, please continue to give us ideas for stuff in the comments section, or if we got something wrong, please let us know. And of course, tell your friends, smash a like button, please subscribe. We can always use more listeners. And if you think this is of value to you or to anybody else, please give it a share. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the three of us ramble on and talk to ourselves, as Jeff says.
Well, we hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Take care.
Bye, guys.